Hi there, this is Willie. This is my part two of my Vlookup series with a interesting set of data. In part one, we went through how to do the difference between Vlookup and SUMIF to populate the donations and the graduation year. So our next piece is to fill in these other details. And there's some part of the lesson here is how we kind of manage data, because we have a issue in how this table was set up. Now, I created this table, and so I can change it and what's actually here. So I can notice that the last name, the email, and the company are not in this data, but is over here, over on this side. Well, the problem I have here is that it doesn't have the first name. Now, in our initial video, we tied these things together with SUMIF and Vlookup using the first name, which of course is a ridiculous way to do it, but just for explanation purposes. So to be able to look up data in this table, we need to use the ID number, because the ID number is here, but it's not in this table. So I'm going to change this table. And just to follow good practices, I'm going to put my ID number over here on the left of everything. I have a little color difference. I'm going to change that. So I'm going to put the ID here. Now, I'm going to make a little difference between the audience listening to this video. I'm going to show kind of the professional way to do it, and then I'm going to show for my class a slightly different way to do it if necessary, because I don't want to have them try to manage too many different functions. But if you're in my class and want to find the ID, you can simply go look them up. There's enough here that there's a few enough here that it's not that big of a deal. If you'd like to try this function, that's great, but you need to fill out the IDs so we can VLOOK the rest of this data. Well, if you're in a professional environment, what you want to do is pull this over and not change the original data. So I have a really hard rule that you don't change the original data, the transactional data, because that data can change, or you could get a new upload. So it's really good practice, just even though this may be in a messed up format, is to just roll with it. Another piece you can do from a professional standpoint is, if the data comes in a really weird format, is to have an intermediary table which uses formulas to reformat it so that reorders the data the way you need it. So, but I always say never touch the original data, with the exception of some formatting, just to be able to view it as dollars or colors or conditional formatting, but never touch it such that you're changing data. So here, I'm going to look this up now. You could just type them in. Again, if my class students are watching this, you can just fill them in, or you can try this new function. Now, the VLOOKUP will not work, because the key limitation of VLOOKUP is that the key that you look up has to be the leftmost column of your data. So if I'm looking up by first name, you can see I can't look for Kevin. Where's Kevin? Kevin's right here. I can't look left. I have to look right. So I can't use VLOOKUP here. So there's another function that some people use instead of VLOOKUP all the time. It's a little bit more complicated, but it is more flexible. And also, in class, we used XLOOKUP, which is available in Microsoft 365, and I believe it's now available in Google Sheets. So XLOOKUP can do these things as well. So I'm going to use a different function called index, which takes an array, and then you tell it basically like the coordinates of the data that you want. So index, and I want this array, because I'm going to connect the first name to the ID number. The row I want, I don't know the row, because it depends on the name that I'm looking at. So what I want to do, let me make this a little bigger so we can see it. I want this table. Now, I want the row that matches Kevin's name. So I use a function called match. The match is asking for the lookup value, which in this case is G2. The lookup array, now here I'm only looking in B. I'm only looking in that list, and I want an exact match. And the column I want, so if you can see the parameters here, look in the array, find a row number, which I've just resolved. The match function will return to me the row of the data that Kevin shows up. Now I want the column. Well, the column I want is just the first column because in the original array, A, B, the thing I want is an ID. So 1, and I believe that's going to be it. Yeah. I can take that and I can drag it down. Now these, of course, don't work, so I'm going to do my little trick with if error. If you catch an error, do something better. And I'll just say not available. So I'll return that, and then I'm going to drag that down. Great, now I have the IDs. Now I can use the ID numbers to cross-rep to VLOOKUP into the other table. So I'm going to do that, and so VLOOKUP, look up the value ID in the table I'm looking at here. Remember, now the table I need to highlight is I have to put the IDs in the leftmost column. So in this case, I'm only looking at ID and then the last name. I could highlight everything. It doesn't really matter. But I'm just going to use those two. And then the column index in that array. So in that table that I just highlighted, I want the second thing. So let me go back and look at the function here. So and whenever you click back, the sheet name will show up in that. So I deleted that. So in sheet 2, I'm looking at BC, and I want the second column. And VLOOKUP always ends in 0. Boom. And while I'm here, I already know that I'm going to need an if error. So run that function, and if it's not found, put in not available. Drag it down. Great. Now, for the purpose of video, I'm not going to go through the email because it's exactly the same. So it's just that my table is going to be 4. It's going to be BE, and I'm going to need column 4. But the one thing I will try to solve here is the company, because the company has the same issue as before, is this value here. If I want to look up their company, it's to the wrong value. Now, the I had before was don't change the transactional data. This is not transactional data. This appears to be a lookup table. So you have some options. We could use index match, but I'm just kind of trying to show you some practices here. Is that if you have a lookup table that you built that is more or less static, right? This person's company and their email doesn't change much. I would change the organization of the data. So I'm going to do that actually. So I'm going to take that here, and I'm going to X that to here and delete this column. Now I believe, which is actually kind of interesting, is that even though I've changed that, you'll notice it did change. So I'm going to have to fix this. So I want A, C, 3, because now the value that I'm looking for is in a different array, A to C, and I want the third thing. So, this is part of the kind of fixing you have to do for the data. So I did change that lookup table. So here, VLOOKUP. Matter of fact, I'm just going to get ahead of it and say if error VLOOKUP value ID table over here, AB, and I want the second column, always end with a 0, close it, and the error is not available. Close parenthesis. Now I can drag that down, and that is how we do that. I'm going to finish the email offline, and we'll look at this next table. Thanks.